Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Janice Dean Podcast. I'm Janice Dean, and today I get to talk to one of my friends here at Fox News. These are the interviews I'm so happy to do because I can take you behind the scenes and have a fun discussion with some of my favorite people. You all know Dana Perino as the co-anchor of America's Newsroom with her friend Bill Hemmer, as well as the co-host of the wildly popular program The Five. She does all kinds of community and charity work and served as White House press secretary for President George W. Bush. She's also written several best-selling books, the latest titled Everything is Going to Be Okay. I'm proud of all of her accomplishments, and I'm so grateful to call her a friend. Dana Perino, you made the Dean's List, and welcome to the Janice Dean Podcast. You know what? You're kind of this, you are a breath of sunshine. I feel a kindred spirit in you. You and I have known each other for, I think, 10 years now.
More than that.
Yeah.
If you think about it, I started as a contributor at Fox in April of 2009.
Wow.
Yeah,
because I started in 2004, and obviously I remember seeing you. But when did you come here?
We moved up here in November of 2011 when the Five started in July of 2011. We were told it was for 5 weeks. And then so we're in our 12th year.
Wow. So tell me about that. I mean, did you ever see your trajectory coming?
No.
But that's kind of awesome because I always knew I would do something in broadcasting. I didn't quite know what. But where was your mindset?
Well, I wanted to do, so I grew up in Denver, and local news in Denver was excellent for a long time. It always won all sorts of awards. And I wanted to be a local news anchor. That's what I thought I wanted to do. And then if you think about it, back then, I know you were raised in Canada, so
correct.
You wouldn't necessarily have known this, but you know this now. The three, well, let's say ABC, CBS, NBC, and PBS, those main anchors for national news were the same guys for like 20 years. Mm-hmm. Right? It was Peter Jennings and Tom Brokaw, Dan Rather, and the McNeil-Lehrer Hour.
Correct.
And that's all there was.
You're right.
So there's a saying in mentoring called, you have to see her to be her. And it's a really important thing, like bring your daughter to work day. It's one of the reasons I am encouraging of it. I'm not against bringing sons to work as well. But there was something about, for girls, especially at that time, it never occurred to me like that I could rise to that level. So local news was my focus. I wanted to be a local news anchor. I wanted to find a community where I could put down some roots, and I wanted to go to the southwest part of the country where it would be warmer and where I could utilize Spanish because I had a minor in Spanish. I love the language, which I can hardly speak anymore.
Well, I spoke French as well, and I've lost it. I can understand it. You probably understand it, but to speak it, I'm very shy.
Me too. Give me a drink and I'll give it a shot, though.
Yes. I think if I have a couple beers, the Le Français comes out.
So I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then I started working in local news during graduate school. And to me, it felt very biased. And I didn't even know what bias was. I grew up in Colorado. Everybody was center-right. I didn't really know any different. And that was the year in 1994-95 when Republicans won, not just in the Congress, which was a huge win for Republicans, and they won all across the country. So I was in Illinois, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of bias here. I didn't even know what bias was, really. And I thought, how do you make your way in this? In order to climb up to be a local news anchor, do you know the climb? That is the most difficult climb. And there can be some lucky breaks along the way, but you're going to be moving every 2 years. You get paid terribly. And I just felt like, gosh, I just took out a $15,000 student loan to pay for graduate school to do something I don't want to do.
Oh, wow. So you knew.
That was a big, horrible kind of moment because at the time your horizons are so like right in front of your face. When I wrote And the Good News Is, obviously it was about the news and all that. But the good news for me was that I had been a planner and a worrier my whole life. And when I finally sat down to write that book after I've been White House press secretary and now I'm at Fox News, I realized that the good news is you can worry all you want. It doesn't have anything to do with what's going to happen in your life. That I look back at all the things I had planned, all the stuff, it didn't matter.
Right.
And so what I'm hoping for, and I know that you have a great message on this as well, is do not worry your young life away.
Yeah.
Because you'll look back and go, oh, well, I didn't need to worry about that because I ended up at the hockey game, and that's how I ended up being at the White House.
I love that you, exactly. When I look back at my trajectory, it's...
Oh, your book is so good. When I read that on a plane from New York to California. I read it in one sitting.
I remember you texted me, and it meant so much to me because, especially when you're writing a memoir about your life, I remember just feeling, oh my gosh, I'm putting this out there, and wanted to be really honest about the whole thing. But I remember the text I got from you, and it meant so much to me.
Well, I texted and I said, can you take a call?
That's right, because you did call me.
I feel like compliments like that, you don't want to just do in a text. And I just wanted you to hear it from somebody else that I was like, this book is so good.
Oh, Dana.
And it still is. I still remember it. I highly, highly recommend it to people.
That's so
Your trajectory is fun.
But it's the same. When I look back, sure, I had the schooling and I had a vague idea of what I wanted to do, but it was all the people I met down the line. And even getting here at Fox, which I talk about in Mostly Sunny, it was from a makeup artist at a local TV station here in New York that got me in the door here at Fox. And I've always said, if you treat people with respect and kindness, that's always going to come back to you. And so when I look at every job that I've ever gotten, sure, once you get in the door with the boss, you have to kind of show that you can do the job. But if you're kind to people, there's always going to be a path for you. I do believe that.
Yeah.
Or someone that will help you out. And then I also say, learn everything, because I started out in radio. I love the podcast because it brings me full circle. I always say, and you know this too, when you're on television, not that I don't love being on TV, of course, but people are focused on kind of what you look like. I'm guilty of that. Today, you look beautiful. You're in pink. Your hair looks fantastic. But when you're on the radio, you don't have that distraction. It's a voice. Yeah.
I've also understood, especially look at the biggest successful broadcasters. There's an intimacy through the ear.
Yep.
That's
true.
My friend.
Yep.
That's my friend.
Right.
They understand me. I get them. And so I think that it's wonderful that you have this podcast. What an outlet.
Well, I love listening and I love hearing people's stories. But back to, meeting you, you are somebody that does look at the bright side. And in a world right now, when we've just gotten out of a pandemic, we're still on the tail end of it. It's still all over the news. It's so vicious in this political cycle that we're in. How do you keep looking for that sunshine?
So I think partly it is natural, right? And I think that people do have dispositions. And I wake up so happy. It's weird. It drives people crazy. I wake up, I'm like, hi, and then this, that, and you should see my dream, and then, oh my gosh, did you see what I'm going to do today? And then, poor Peter, my husband,
Well, Peter and Sean are very similar.
It takes him a while to get going in the morning, and I'm sitting there, tapping my foot, and I feel so bad for the dog. I'm like, I know, he's so slow. I'm sorry. I don't know. But so there's a naturalness to it, but my grandfather on the ranch, on my father's side, a very optimistic person. And one time I had asked him about that, and he said, well, as a rancher, you have to be. Because you have to believe that it's all going to be okay.
Right.
You can't control so many of the things, the weather in particular. And a lot of we're seeing that all across the country right now. But then I also, as I went up through working on Capitol Hill, I was part of a really great church group, a singles group, at the Lutheran Church there on Capitol Hill in D.C. And I went through tough times, of course, there, as everybody does. 25, when you're around 25, that's like a miserable. It's a great time to be alive, but also
it's hard.
You're just having this quarter life crisis going, wait, my whole life that I had envisioned and planned is not turning out the way it's supposed to be. And there was a woman in our group. She was slightly older than all of us. Her husband had severe depression. And she was trying to do her best to get out and do some things for herself. So she came to our singles group, and I was talking about some worries one day, and she said, remember that God says, fear not. And I started thinking about that a little bit more. I looked up the Bible verses. Do you know how many times in the Bible, both Old Testament and New Testament, it says to not worry? And then I learned a little bit more that is true in Judaism. It is true in Islam. and in Buddhism and probably others that I've never even heard of, that humans, have a biological need to worry so that they can stay alive and be aware of the dangers. But then you have God saying, I got it.